Welcome back to Franco Fridays. I decided to go back to Franco. I missed him so much from last week, and look at a film. It was early collaboration with Lena Remay, one of the early ones, and that is the Marquise De Sade, or the Thousand Eyes of Doriana Gray, or the Portrait of Doriana Gray. All these Franco films have numerous titles depending on where they were distributed. This is another collaboration between Erwin C. Dietrich and Jess Franco. Although this one is probably the most unique of the whole Erwin C. Dietrich period, in that it's got some hardcore porn in it. I mean, I don't have a way to describe it other than it goes with Franco films. You can expect a great deal of softcore type stuff and female nudity, but you don't really see too much in his mainstream films, straight up hardcore action scenes. This has two, and one of them features Lena Remay. So that's going to be a little bit off-putting to some of you folks, but I don't think that should detract you from seeing the film. I also don't think it should be judged as, you could just make a knee-jerk reaction and say, well, this is a part of Jess Franco's pornography films. But I think that would be selling the film significantly short. So let me talk about the storyline briefly. Lena Remay plays two roles, basically a sister that's been separated at birth, Siamese twins separated at birth, and they have kind of a dual alternate personalities with extreme differences. One, the sister that you don't see so much is basically in kind of an institution, and this Lena Remay is, this part of the sister is really almost a vampire in a lot of respects. She doesn't have fangs per se, but what she is she's a sexual nympho that when she has sex with someone, basically it kills them. And so the blending of the Marquise De Sade concepts that Jess Franco knows and loves dearly, with a different twist here. So you don't really have as much torture or sado-erotic stuff that you have in the typical films, but here you've got the blending of sex and death. And so if you're looking for a film that just for pure titillation, I want to see boobs and vaginas and people making out, this one's not for you, because it's very clinical in its approach to the sex, and at the end, people die. So it's the intent of it is the blending of those two concepts, death and sex, and so it does still harken back to the Marquise de Sade philosophies and literature, and it's certainly a different take on that. It's not a vanilla genre piece at all. It's a very interesting, fascinating art house film, very hypnotic. It's interesting. Franco in this one goes about the process of showing the female body very clinically, almost gynecologically in this one, which is a little bit different. And you're going to get a lot of close-ups in this. I'm talking about like where you can see basically the hairs where they enter. I mean, it's that close. You feel like if you ever wanted to be an OBGYN physician, this is your opportunity to see what that would be like, because this is up close and personal stuff. But again, I think it's a beautifully shot film. There's one scene in this that Lena Remay is standing naked, kind of sideways, and out the window is a rainbow, and she's perfectly shot inside the rainbow. I mean, it's a beautiful shot. So you're going to get just a plethora of different types of camera shots in this thing. A lot of zooming in, a lot of zooming out. a lot of blurry, out of focus type stuff, and then you're going to get some beautiful shots like Lena Romay underneath a rainbow. I mean, so you're going to get all of what we all know and love with Jess Franco in this film, I believe. Um, I really like it. I think it's one of his best films. You know, does the hardcore scenes help it or hurt it? I think that's worth the discussion. I'm indifferent. I don't think that it hurts it or helps it. I think it just simply emphasizes that sex and death, the direct result of having sex with this Lena Romay version of the sister, if you will, is going to result in death, and it just kind of amplifies the tying of those two elements together. So I don't look at the hardcore scenes as pure titillation for the sake of titillation. I look at it as portraying a storyline, which is why I think to dismiss this as pornography is a mistake. It's a beautifully, again, it was a beautifully shot film. The settings, I believe it was shot in Italy, if I'm not mistaken. It was done in 1976, probably shot in 75 or the latter part of 75. And there's a beautiful on-set locations, which is typical of the Franco films of this period, where the shooting locations are just magnificent. The house that they shoot this thing in is incredible. This was either shot in Italy or Switzerland. I don't know which. His distributor is Erwin C. Dietrich out of Switzerland, but I believe this was an Italian villa that this one was shot at. And I don't know. It would be great to find out kind of how they made the arrangements to shoot at this place, because it looks immaculate. It's just a beautiful on-set location. Another interesting aspect of this film, which is highly unusual from previous Franco discussions, is the use in music of a sitar. This goes for a mellow, dreamlike music sound, and they use an Indian sitar guitar. It's the only film that I know that Franco did where he used kind of the Indian sounds with the sitar instrument, and it works perfectly. It's hypnotic. I'm not going to say it to the point where this is poetry or anything like that. Let's not go overboard. It is Franco. It's still meat and potatoes, hardcore stuff, but it's the use of the sitar and the music and the dreamlike nature of the film, I think, is something that you got to take your hat off to Franco. I think he really has that down to a science. Lena Romay probably never looked better. I mean, if you're looking for Lena Romay when she looked ravishing, this one is it, man. She looked awesome. And what's interesting about, I know she takes a lot of crap from people, some critics, in terms of her acting abilities, but I think here, for example, there's a numerous sequences where Lena Romay, who is basically the insane sister in this thing, she's either possessed or a nympho, whatever it is. So she's writhing around on the bed, either dreaming of having sex and killing someone, or actually doing it and reliving it in her dreams or fantasies. While she's doing it, she's writhing around on the bed, well, naked. What are you thinking? What's so great about the acting of that? Well, there's writhing around on the bed, and then there's writhing around on the bed, is what I would tell you. And you just have to see it to see the difference. She does it with such a passion and unpretentiousness, and she's so uninhibited in her approach that it works. And I don't know, I'm not an actor or an actor. I mean, can't put my finger on why, but I know good acting from bad acting, from going through the motions type stuff, and those distinctions I can make. And in this case, Lena Romay writhing on the bed is tremendous acting. I mean, and I would argue that if you don't know what I'm talking about or don't believe it, check this film out and then come back and say, because I just think that the way she does it in such a passionate, uninhibited way is, I just think it'd be difficult for a lot of people to replicate. So yeah, that is the Marquise de Sade, or The Thousand Eyes of Doriana Gray, or The Portrait of Doriana Gray, however you want to describe it. And this is a full moon release, which has a interview with Erwin C. Dietrich and Jess Franco, although they don't really talk specifically about this film. They talk more about just the general partnership and the Erwin C. Dietrich. The other interesting aspect of the interview on this one was Erwin talks about how this film was made. He almost says it's kind of like Franco made this one behind my back as we were making another film. And then it cuts to Franco explaining this two-film concept at the same time that he took advantage of, where a producer would give him money to make a film, and he would use the same crew and cast and resources to shoot a second film at the same time. Long story short is this one was one of those accused second films that Erwin, quote, didn't know about, but he benefited from it. And that was Franco's point. He said, you know, I brought this to him as kind of, we say in New Orleans, lagniappe, a little bit extra. What's he complaining about? And in fact, what does he have to complain about? Because it's probably one of the best of the whole Erwin C. Dietrich filmography, in my opinion. So yeah, that's the Marquise de Sade, and that will end my Franco Fridays. And I appreciate you watching. Thanks.